Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn a little bit about slabs for building our architecture piece. So this is the slab roller. It has a big canvas sheet that lays down and opens up. You can choose whatever clay you want to work with. I'm choosing terracotta. So if you're using red clay, you have to lay down this sheet before you get started with actually rolling, okay? And when I lay that down, I'm trying to make it as smooth as I possibly can. I have my wedged clay here. I've kind of pat it down just a little bit, and then I'm gonna push that or put that right up against here. I'm gonna fold the piece that I laid down, trying to make it nice and smooth. And then I'm gonna also put this over top of it. This works very easy. If your clay is too big or tall, it's gonna have a challenging time to roll over top of it, so just make sure you smash it down a little bit. And then I'm just gonna go back the other way to get my slab. So this is a quick way to roll out a slab rather than using a rolling pin. Okay, so let's say you're trying to make a rectangular shape and it kind of came out more oval or circular. You can cut bits away, so like pieces like this, and add them to sides where you need them. If you need a different shape for what you're building. And then you would just do the exact same thing. Make sure that's flat again. And roll right back over it. This is going to compress the clay together since the clay is at a good consistency, a lot of moisture in it. I'm not running into the risk of it cracking right there. Once you have your piece of clay, you can bring a clay board over here. And I have a larger clay boards in the clay room. So let me sit this down and then I'm going to carry you with me over to the demonstration table. Okay, so I have my slab that I just rolled. Sometimes it will leave some marks on your clay, like the canvas that's on there. I like to smooth it out and I want it to look nice. It also just compresses the clay. Any areas where you stuck the clay back together, it just smooths out all that out so it looks like one big piece. So there's lots of things you can do. This is a soft slab, meaning I can bend it and manipulate it without cracking. There are incidences when you want to use a hard slab, okay? So that means you want it to maintain its structure while you're building. And a hard slab just means that it's dried out a little bit. It's not going to be completely leather hard, but it's going to be a soft leather hard. So I wanted to show you some things you can do with a soft slab first. So I have these molds, drape molds or hump molds are what they're called, and you lay clay over top of them to get a desired form. Now I have laid one over, to get this started, one over this oval shaped form, and I still haven't like really defined and smoothed it out. But you really want to press that clay on there once you drape it over the surface, okay? So I have all different types of shapes and sizes. I also have a lot of big ones, half spheres, if you're interested for your design. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is how to make a tube and just describe to you kind of how I made this sculpture. So I did use a tube for this main part. I used a hump mold, which I laid the clay over top of a half sphere. And then this bottom one is a harder slab that I used to create this interesting kind of floral design there. Okay, so I want to use this tube to actually wrap the clay around and get a nice shape. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just like cut off this end because it's kind of scraggly and whatnot. I'm also going to cut off the end down here. It's best to use a ruler so you can get a nice straight line. Okay, so I'll take the clay and I'm just going to kind of roll it as tightly as I can, keeping it against the cardboard tube. Something I didn't mention is that there is newspaper on the surface of this and you will need to add that. So once it gets to where it meets the other side, I'm just gonna cut it, even though this is not the exact size that I'll need. I cut it just a little bit bigger. Okay, so when you connect these, you don't want to have this big, large hump. So you have to cut them in a specific way, which is just a 45-degree angle. Doesn't have to be a perfect angle or anything, but it just makes it butt up against there so that they attach easier and make a nice, clean, thick or clean surface. So right here is an example of a beveled cut, and I cut it just like this with a clay knife. So I'm gonna do that real quick. It's kind of hard from this angle. So you don't want to cut it too thin and then it's weak. And then on this side, cut it the opposite direction. Since the clay is really soft, I do not have to slip and score these edges. Now, if your clay was a little bit harder, it is very important that you slip and score clay slabs because slabs tend to crack more, especially if it's trying to be a geometric shape or form. So I'm just kind of pushing that up against there. Because it is really soft right now, it's hard to do a lot of smoothing, but I'm just making sure that it's really nice and pressed up against here so I can get a nice cylindrical form. Once this hardens a bit, which I'm not gonna have time to do that in here, I would just smooth this clay out with the rib, pulling it up and down, also making this edge clean by just using a knife and kind of going around. Realize that you could cut this so it's like this uneven edge, like a wave or something, or maybe it has like jagged edges. So you can do anything you want to that. And then once it is like a soft leather hard, meaning it can maintain its shape, but it's not gonna crack if you bend it a little bit, okay? You're just gonna pull the cardboard tube right out of there, and now you have a really nice cylindrical form. Okay, so this was also done with a soft slab, and again, I try to put this on here before the demonstration so that it would dry a little bit. It's definitely not that dry, but it will come off of here because this comes off easily. So I have this really nice form all ready to go. I would clean up the edges here because it is bendy. You know, I could do something with that shape if needed, but I wanted this to stiffen up. So I'm gonna put this back on here, and I would probably put it underneath the fan or just wait during class to kind of let it dry on there. Okay, so also when you are working with soft slabs, you can do textures really easily, and you don't have to apply a ton of pressure, or you can, to get a really nice textured surface. Okay, so this texture right here, I used a clay stamp that looked like this, and I literally just kind of like pressed it in there and pushed it around. I used a shell for this section right here. I use this roller for this kind of pattern up here. I have a whole box of stamps, of natural objects, rollers that you can use to create various textures on the surface. Remember, you're gonna have to have that as part of your design. Right now, I'm gonna show you how to use this wire mesh. So, I'm gonna go back over to this piece. And all I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna use just a handheld roller, like this one, and roll it on there. And I'm not giving a ton of pressure because I don't wanna thin the clay out, but I do want that wire to kind of push into the clay. So once I've rolled that everywhere, then I quickly get this nice texture pattern to the surface. Okay. Hard slabs. So I have a hard slab, and these, again, they're not leather hard. I can still wiggle them a little bit without it cracking. Now, if I were to really pull at this, it would crack here. So what I did is I made a paper template of the exact size that I want my cube to be. So every side will be this big, okay? You can make, what I would like us to do from the get-go is find any shapes that you're going to need specifically and measure those out instead of like measuring it in clay, because you tend to mess up more and then it's not a fun process to get the clay working again. So I used this template to create the bottom here, and I made 2 of them, slipped and scored and overlapped them. I made this template for a piece I made, but I don't have it here, which was like the base of my piece. So just kind of an interesting shape. So when you are connecting slabs, I told you guys that it is very important that you compress slip and score those edges. And you guys are still having issues with slipping and scoring and not following the rules or directions. You really have to scratch this a lot. It should look messy. And then the slip will add like a stickiness to the surface. If you're working with a hard slab, it is so important that you do this or it will crack along the seams. So I also cut these at a beveled edge, so you can see here. And I just held the knife kind of at an angle and cut it. And it's not this perfect angle, but it's close. And then I slipped and scored it, and when they're joined together, you can see that they come to a nice edge. And it also is the most surface area can connect. So I'm gonna like push this slab that's standing up into this one that's on the base, and really try to kind of rub my hand or fingers back and forth so it compresses right there. For hard slabs, I always do this because I want to make sure it's going to stay. Add a little bit of slip here down at the base, and then doesn't have to look pretty or anything, but a coil just like this to make it super strong and super sturdy. Okay, so you will notice that the shape is holding up and it's not flopping around. That's because it is a stiff slab. If you notice when you're trying to build a structure and it's not holding its shape, it probably needs to dry more. So with this backer board that's on every table, it is so helpful to drying out slabs. So I lay it on there and then I'll give it a flip every 5 minutes. You can also set it up by the fan, but you obviously know I don't have space for everybody there. So these are kind of the things to get us started. I'll be going over some more stuff as we get into working. And I can't wait to see your designs come alive. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Thanks for watching.